Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Zoom In on a Fresh Conversation. And it is Sunday night, and so this is really called Zoom In After Dark. We're doing a special Zoom In with a very special author, and her name is Debbi Rice, and she is the author of Good in Bed. Thank you, Debbi, for being with us this evening.
Thank you, Donna, for the invitation. I'm so honored to be on your platform tonight.
Thank you so much. And Priscilla, thank you for introducing me and the rest of us to Debbi Rice. I appreciate that very, very much. You took me out of a jam you didn't know I was in, so I thank you so, so much. You know, the universe will take care of it if you let it, right? Zoom In on a Fresh Conversation. It's brought to you by Eyeless Diamonds LLC, the Fresh Book Festival, and Zoom In on a Fresh Conversation. This is After Dark on a Sunday, so thank you for joining us. If you have any questions for Debbi, please leave them in the chat room. We will get back to them at the end of our session, and this conversation is being recorded. Good evening, Debbi. Please take a moment and give our audience a brief background.
Good evening, Donna, and thank you so much for
Yes, thank you for being here.
I am Debbi Rice. I am a singles enthusiast, author, confidence coach. I encourage people to and inspire people to abandon the idea of waiting and putting off the great things in their lives and to ignite the confidence to embrace the adventure and the joy and the power of the amazing single life. And
Amazing.
So I grew up in a very traditional home, and in my teenage years, I realized that I enjoyed being single. Saw the whole traditional marriage.
Right.
And as a teenager, I was like, that's not really what I want. But I ended up going down that path because I yielded to the societal pressure to couple up, and went down that path, ended up getting married, ended up getting divorced, and being the single and amazing person that I always wanted to be.
Yeah, thank you. It's amazing. And your generation behind me and my generation, I didn't get married till I was almost 30. So they thought I had been struck by lightning and
Yeah.
had voodoo put on me. Because everybody was already married, right? You know it, Tony. Everybody was already married. So everywhere I went, they'd say, so are you gay? What's wrong with you, right? So, yeah, so if you think you got it, try this generation. It was even worse. So we're going to touch on the publication part of the book. We usually do it at the end, but there's so much I want to ask you that I want to get that over with. So Good in Bed is an amazing title to the book. Is that something that you came up with?
I did. I wrote down a bunch of different titles, but I kept coming back to Good in Bed. I knew that it would be controversial. I knew it would cause a buzz, and I knew it would draw people to the book and draw people to buy the book. And so, yeah, I came up with that title.
That's excellent title because, not that the book is not good in bed. It's just that it gives you a whole another dimension that you were not ready for, right?
Exactly.
When you bought the book, right? So anyway, that was genius. And you did self-publish, right?
I published through Laboo Publishing Enterprises.
Okay, I don't know what that is. Tell us about it.
Laboo Publishing Enterprises is a company headed by Kimberly Laboo. She is the publisher, and she has several, excuse me, Amazon bestsellers. And so I worked with her to get this book published, and it was a great process.
And she is out of where?
She is out of Baltimore, Maryland.
Okay. Laboo Publishing.
Laboo, L-A-B-O-O.
Is she open for new clients?
She is. laboopublishing.com is her website.
Okay, okay, yeah, because there's several people that we know now who are looking for good publishers and editors, which are hard to find, right?
Mhm.
Which
I
are really,
highly
really hard.
recommend her. She
Mhm.
did a great job walking me through the process, and I highly recommend her company.
So tell me about the cover.
The cover.
The cover.
So when I came up with the title, Good and Bad,
Yes.
I immediately imagined the cover.
Okay.
Knew exactly what I wanted, and I described it to the publisher, and I described it in detail, and she worked with a graphic artist, came back with about 5 different uh,
Right.
covers for me to choose from, and when I saw this one, I knew, I said, "Yes, that's it. That is."
Perfect.
Um, so yeah, I imagined it as soon as I came up with the title Good in Bed.
Just a hint of sexuality, but nothing too crazy,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
Lakeisha, you have your hand up? No? Do you see a little hand up there? Oh, that's me.
No,
Okay.
I don't.
No.
Okay. That's my hand. So yeah, fabulous cover, not too much, just enough to make you want to pick the book up, right? So yeah. And so when you had the layout in front of you, how long did it take you to say, that's the one I want?
Oh, almost immediately.
Okay.
Almost immediately. It took me longer to decide on the font than it did on the actual picture. I
Mm,
knew the picture, and many of the pictures were similar, but that was the one that just did it for me. So, like I said, it took me longer to decide on the font than it did the actual picture cover.
great cover, a great cover. So you picked an ingenious cover and an ingenious title. I think this is going to do very, very well. So let's get to the meat of the book. I enjoyed it so much. Took it to the beach, read it there, brought it home, started again, and finished it in a day. But most people won't do that. Don't go by us, and Mama Tony and I, because because that's what we do. But this book is a beach book. This book is a walk book. This is a book you take and you just put a little, turn the page, put it down, and then bring it back and start it all over again. It's that good of a read. So I want to get to the seasoned veterans because that's what we are here, not including yourself. But you say, who's going to check me, boo? Talk about the various stages, ages of being single and your thoughts on how wonderful it can be if you embrace it. Who's going to check me, boo?
It's gonna check me, boo. Single is just so wonderful, and
Right.
I don't think that it gets the props that it should. Um, and single is amazing in any stage or age of life. And so if you're 16 to 35, that's the time where you can create any life you imagine.
Mm,
And I love to encourage the younger women and teenage girls into their early 30s to just turn off the opinions of others and do what you love. Create the life that you want while you're single, while you don't have any attachments and anything holding you back. So just go ahead and do it. So single is fantastic in that age group. Then you get to the 36 to 50. And in that stage, that is the stage that most women make the craziest decisions as it pertains to relationships. And any of us who have been through that stage already know that
Right.
that's kind of a very tricky stage. And it becomes tricky because of that bully called the biological clock. Women are chasing that biological clock and will often do things that they would not normally do and get into relationships with people that they would not normally get into relationships with because they're chasing that biological clock. And like you said earlier, with your generation, people are looking and saying, "Oh, you not married yet? You don't have a boyfriend yet? You don't have a," and looking at other people as if something's wrong. And so when you embrace single between 16 and 50, you can do whatever you want to do if you don't get locked into
Caught up.
chasing,
Yeah.
caught up into chasing that biological clock and what
Yeah.
society tells you to do.
Mhm.
Now, for those of us who are in the 51 to 75 stage, that is the stage in which the biggest percentage of singles dwell. The largest percentage of singles, according to the US Census, are in the stage 51 to 75. And that is the stage where we find women who have dedicated their lives to other people. They've taken care of the husband, they've taken care of the children, they've taken care of their long-term partners, they've taken care of their parents. And they wake up and all of a sudden it's like, what about me? Well, that's the stage that single is really great because we can say, okay, now it's all about me. Bump the rest of y'all.
Who gonna check me, boo?
Who's gonna check me?
Right.
Bump the rest of y'all. It's all about me. And this is the stage also in which people tend to think that we're crazy because we may have been doing things to please other people in those other stages. But when you get to 51 to 75, you're all about pleasing yourself and creating that life that you wish you had created earlier. But now you know you got to do it. You got to do it. And the real who gonna check me boo stage, when you get in your 70s,
Right.
for real, who's gonna check you? You can do that's right, Miss Tony. That's right, Mama Tony. Who gonna check you? That's the stage in which you have done it all and still have so much to do. That's the stage that women have to realize you're not too old. It's not too late and you're not too old and it's not over for you. So
Right.
whatever stage of single you are, it's always a good stage.
Yeah. You just have to embrace it. It's like gray hair.
Yeah, yeah. There you go.
You just have to embrace it because it's not going to go anywhere. You can try to hide from it, but it's not going to go anywhere. Those are excellent stages, and I'm glad that you went over them with us. But you have some proven medical benefits to tell us about that you researched about how being single is not such a bad thing.
Being single, according to most scientists, is much more advantageous than being in a partnership or a marriage. And I have an article that's posted on my Instagram page about the benefits of being single, some of which are single people tend to be more fit than their married counterparts.
Right.
Um, there is a correlation between weight gain and being in relationships. And so single people tend to be more fit than their married counterparts. Sleep. Single people tend to um, sleep better, sleep more deeply, and have a better quality of sleep than those that are in relationships. And I imagine that comes from being in, not being in the bed with somebody else, interrupting one's sleep.
Snoring.
So, yeah, snoring, or even just the movement of another person in the bed with you, and then just relaxing and being yourself in the bed, being good in bed,
Good and bad.
being good in bed. So one of the other benefits of being single is that research shows that being single people have stronger, more quality friendships than people who are in partnerships and married. And so those are just a few of the physical benefits and emotional benefits of being single that we don't hear a lot about.
Right.
Um, Often when we talk about single life, it's talked about in the negative. And so one of the things that I endeavored to do with this book is to show the positive side of single life and really get people to realize that it's a wonderful way to live and it is a choice.
It's a choice. Definitely is a choice. So I had single and saved was the topic last Monday. And I asked the question that I'm going to ask you in a different way. Sexual sin in and of itself has never sent anyone to hell, or any more than a person's morality can secure him or her a place in heaven. Why do you think that masturbation in 2022 is still so taboo when it is actually good for you?
Well, thank you for that question.
And straight out the book.
I,
I was just saying.
I actually saw your broadcast with the single and saved ladies last week, and I have a lot to say about that. It's funny because you know, people don't know how to take this book. I think a lot of people went into it thinking, ooh, good in bed, it's gonna be kind of risque. And then people who have known me from the church world or from education or from other areas of my life went in thinking, this not gonna be nothing. And when I hit them with the whole masturbation story, I had people calling me like, oh my God, I can't believe you went there. Did you real? Oh my God. So I agree with you. That has never sent anybody to hell, and morality has never saved anyone.
Right.
And so I have a lot of opinions about traditional church and some of the things that are taught in traditional church. However, to answer your question, most child psychologists agree that masturbation is a natural way that children relieve anxiety. And having been a preschool and elementary school teacher for many, many years, I can attest to that. And I think that one of the reasons why people still in 2022 have a problem with it is because the area, it's an area of control. It's an area in which the church feels as if it can control and police people's lives. And so they do. And people tend to think that it's something dirty and it is something unnatural and that people are doing something wrong. But children aren't taught to masturbate.
Right. It's a pleasure principle.
It's a pleasure principle. And one of the things that I learned in this research was that the clitoris is the only organ in the body that only functions for pleasure. That's its only function.
That's it.
It doesn't have any other function but for pleasure. And so when you look at it from the child psychology perspective and how that's been provided as a way to relieve anxiety, why would one not condone it? It's also, I think, a problem for people because they want to control other people's lives, and they don't want to do it.
Right. I think they want to control other people's lives, but they do it. They just don't want to talk about it.
They do it, and they don't want to talk about it. And so they don't want to admit that this is a natural. I don't believe that there is anyone who very few people who have never masturbated, because it is a natural. Even when you think about how long our hands are and where your hands fall when you just drop your hands fall right by your genitals. And so it can be very controversial, but it is my belief, and I say this is not necessarily based on research, but it is my belief that women would not make as many ridiculous choices as it pertains to picking the wrong partners or getting and staying in toxic relationships if they were more open to masturbation. But because many women feel as if, I have to fulfill this need, or I have to release this anxiety in some way, they tend to get over into areas with toxic people and toxic relationships, and even staying in toxic relationships for the sex.
For the pleasure principle.
For the pleasure principle.
When you can actually do it yourself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
So in your research and your workshops, you found that some married women stay married just so they will not be divorced. And since divorce is not only prevalent in the secular arena, but in the Christian arena, why are we still looking sideways at people? And I want you to talk just briefly about the foreign student that you had a conversation with about changing last names. You want me to repeat that? That was a long question. But you have it. Okay, good. Repeat it?
Yes, please.
Okay. In your research and in your workshops, have you found that some married women stay married just so they will not be a divorcee?
Mm-hmm. So, yes.
And the other side of it was there's just as many Christians getting divorced as there are secular people. So,
yes. I feel that many women who are unhappy in their marriages and are in toxic relationships stay in those relationships first and foremost because many of them are afraid to be alone, and don't feel as if they have the self-esteem to be on their own, um, and they don't want to deal with the stigma that comes with being a person who's been divorced. And I don't particularly espouse to the word divorcee. It just sounds so negative.
It does.
And as a matter of fact, yesterday I was walking with my walking group, and a lady told me that her mother, for 5 years after her divorce, introduced her as my daughter, the divorcee. And so, yes, look at Miss Tony's face. Yes, that's the same thing. That's the same thing I did. She said she had to just straight up tell her mother, I'm not coming over anymore until you stop introducing me to your friends as my daughter, the divorcee. And so, yeah, there are a lot of women who stay in toxic marriages because they don't want the stigma of divorce. And I think that in 2022, there's still a stigma because people haven't learned to reframe divorce as a way that you can have another chance. You can recalculate. When we're going down the road and we have our GPS on and we take a wrong turn, it says recalculating, recalculating. And I look at divorce as a way to recalculate. You can recalculate the life that you always wanted when you go ahead and say, okay, we thought this was going to work, but it didn't work, and we're going to recalculate. You go your way, I go my way, and never the two shall meet again. But the stigma comes in when we hold marriage as the standard,
Right. Right.
and feel as if each and every person is supposed to get married. And that's just not true. It's not for everybody. It's not best for everybody. And when we realize that we can have amazing lives, just being the person we were born to be. We weren't born in relationships with other people. We were born as individuals. Even, yeah, we were born single. We were born single. And so even people who were born as twins or multiples, you came out one at a time. You came out as one whole individual person. And so when we think about that and we embrace the beauty of the person that we are, it doesn't matter whether you're in a relationship or not. But that's not how society feeds it to us. And so, yeah, you're absolutely right. There are a lot of women. And one thing that has surprised me since I released this book is the number of married women who have reached out to me. And not just those who are in toxic relationships or in bad marriages, but married women who say, man, I never thought of some of the things that you brought out in this book. I never, ever thought about why I changed my name. And so you asked about that. A few years ago, I had the privilege of working with some students from China who are here studying in the United States. I would help them with their homework and help them learn the language and all of that. And one of the students said, Miss Rice, why do women in the United States change their names when they get married? And she was very frustrated because one of her instructors had gotten married in the middle of the school year, and she was having a hard time remembering to call the woman by her married name.
Right.
And so she said, you know, why do women in the United States do that? And she said, women in my country don't do that. We don't change our names when we get married. And so I told her at the time, I really don't have an answer for you, but I'm going to find out. And I researched it. And just like so many other things in the United States, it went back to consumerism, capitalism, coming
Ownership.
from England, ownership, and that women were considered the property of their husbands. Children were considered the property of their fathers, just like how many hogs they owned, just like how many horses they owned, and just like how many houses they owned. And so it was required that women change their names so that people would know who owned them.
Mm.
And so I wanted to bring that out in the book, not to discourage people from changing their names, but so that people would know and just have the knowledge that you do have a choice.
Yeah, yeah. You can keep your last name in hyphenated, right?
You can hyphenate it,
or not.
you can keep your name. You can do whatever you want, but the way it's presented is that that's a given, and it's not a given.
Right.
It's a choice. And so I wanted women to know that you have the choice. Some people look at it, taking on their spouse's name as an honor, as showing that I've been quote unquote chosen. And if that's what you want to do, that's great. And we've also kind of been taught in the church that it's a biblical principle. It is not a biblical principle. And so I'm one of those people who has always questioned everything from the time I was a little child. And so when I hear stuff like that, I always go to research.
Right.
So
what?
No, it's not a biblical principle. And no, God is not going to be mad at you if you get married and keep your given name. And so I tell a story in the book about, someone that I know who had been married 4 times, and each time she changed her name. But her husband had been married 3 times. Nobody knew that because he didn't have to change his name, or he didn't choose to change his name. And
he doesn't have to change it.
He doesn't have to, and he doesn't have to take on the stigma of I was Smith, Jones, Rice, and Bod, and now I'm Body. He got to keep his name. And so it's just another
archaic
sign of the patriarchy that we don't always pay attention to.
So as I was reading your book, you made a reference to how Jesus was single with no children. And so I called my bishop friend after I finished the book. I said, hey, let's have a conversation about Jesus being single. He said, hang up the phone. I said, hang up the phone? He said, hang up the phone, Don. So nobody wants to talk about Jesus being single, 34 with no children. Right. So
no. And
he said, hang up the phone. I said,
okay. I can't tell you the flack that I've gotten over the years when I talk about that in church. Because no, people don't want to talk about that, but it's in the scriptures. It's not hidden.
No, right.
It's in the scriptures. And again, as I did my research, I found out that in Jewish culture, at 13, a young man can sign contracts. He is of legal marrying age, and he is considered old enough and mature enough to take on a wife. And so when I found that out and I realized Jesus was old in Jewish culture,
Yes.
33, you 20 years behind the 8 ball. And you didn't hear him talking about, ooh, I got to get over here. I got to find me a wifey. Oh, I'm old. He's starting to talk.
No, he didn't. He did not.
You didn't hear that. All you heard him talking about was his purpose.
Right.
This is why I came to seek and save that which was lost. The Son of Man came to heal. I didn't come to be served, but to serve. He always talked about why he came, why he was there, and what his purpose was. And that has not been my experience in the church. I grew up in the church. My parents were church leaders. So I've been in church, various churches, all my life. And I've never heard people address Jesus's single state. I never heard them address anything about purpose as it pertained to singles. Singles ministry was always, I'm going to tell you how to be holy, how not to have sex before marriage, and how to get a husband and prepare for marriage. They always taught, especially the girls. I never really saw them teaching the boys or the young men how to prepare their lives to be husbands. But the girls were always taught, this is how you're going to be a good wife and you prepare for marriage. And you look up and there are many, many bitter, angry women in church because they've been
bamboozled.
They've
Hoodwinked.
been bamboozled. Thank you. They've been fed this crock of poop. And now they look and they're in their late 30s, early 40s, maybe 50. And this weight message that they've been told all of these years has not panned out for them. And they look up and they have wasted years, their prime years, waiting for some man to come save them.
Right.
When they could have been wasting their youth. Yes, Lakeisha, wasting their youth, waiting for somebody to come and rescue them when they could have been building the lives of their dreams. And that was one of the reasons that I started my empowerment group, Single and Amazing, was because I watched two of my friends do exactly that. They were obsessed with getting married, finding a man, what hairstyle was going to attract the man, what they could cook to keep the man, all of these things. And in their early 50s, both of these women died, and they were bitter because they lived their lives searching and waiting for this man to come and find them.
The thing is, it just gives us, what gave me a new comeback for anybody who says, well, why are you single? And I said, well, Jesus was single.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You ask him?
Yeah.
You didn't ask, why are you asking me? Right. It's perfect. It's a perfect way to come back to all that. And that's one of the questions when you're at a family reunion, you know, you go around family, why are you still single? And now my given track is going to be, well, Jesus was single.
Jesus was single.
And
Yes,
there ain't nobody talking to him about it. Why are you talking to me?
right.
Yeah, I
And I
love
have
that.
a
I
friend
love that.
who is single, and she's in the single coaches space like I am, and she's very gracious when people say, "Why are you still single?" I'm not gracious when it comes to that. My go-to is because I was born that way. Right here on my shirt, because I was
I was born
that
that
way.
way.
I was born single. So to even ask someone why you're single, why not? And then my second comeback is, why are you still married?
Because I heard no. Right, exactly.
Miss
Exactly.
Tony, I'm not real gracious when it comes
Well, I'm
because
taking
I
all that off the table. I'm taking it all off the table. The first thing I'm gonna say is Jesus was single.
Jesus was single.
That's gonna take care of it. That's gonna end the conversation. I love it. I
But
love it. I
usually
love it.
when I say I was born that way, it ends the conversation.
Yeah, I'll
Because
do that
it
too.
really, it makes people
Think. Yeah.
really makes them think and like feel stupid, in which they should.
Yeah. So anyway, I just thought that was great. And I loved the bishop's response. Hang up the phone. It was too funny. So the average American spends 36 years in bed over the course of their lifetime. According to new research, why don't you believe we should be good in bed? Meaning good mattresses, good pillows, good sheet counts. Why do people not understand that being good in bed has nothing to do with sex?
Mhm. People don't necessarily value themselves enough to put quality into their lives, quality in every area of their lives. And like you said, the research shows that over our lifetime, we spend 36 years.
36 years
36
in bed.
years in bed. So you don't want to go to Bedarama and get a $199 mattress when you are spending that much time in bed. But Donna, it goes back to self-esteem and what we believe we deserve. And so when we believe we deserve the best, we go out and get the best. And when we know that this will affect other areas of our life, when you go get a cheap mattress, you can ruin your back.
Absolutely.
You can ruin your hip. You can ruin your body. You can go to work the next day and be so absolutely tired that you think something is wrong with you, and something is wrong with you because you've been sleeping on a cheap mattress. You've been sleeping on those sheets that you got from Ollie's that are scratching up your skin. And I'm not down at Ollie's because I like Ollie's. I find some bargains there, but not on my sheets. So it goes back to,
Is it knowledge? I mean, I taught my son about a count on the sheet, but do most people teach their children about a count on a sheet?
probably not. Probably not. And that's probably something that we need to add into the things that we teach our children. These are the sheet count that is comfortable, is soft.
They last longer.
They last longer when you wash them. Yes. But again, it goes back to what we believe we deserve.
Yeah, I did start looking at my numbers a little sideways the other day after I got through. I threw out two there where the count was way too low. So I don't think I'll be putting those back on the bed. So when you say, why settle when you can select? Expound on that for me.
Why settle when you can select came from a commercial that I saw back in 2005. If you Google it, it's on YouTube. Um, it's a Campbell Soup commercial with John Lithgow, and he's talking about the quality, again, of Campbell's soup. And the tagline was, "Why settle when you can select?" And I adopted that as one of my life's mantras, because
Absolutely.
yes, when we settle, every time we settle, we chip away at a little piece of our self-esteem, because we're telling ourselves that we're not worth the best. And so when we settle, we're accepting or agreeing to something that's just a little less than what we deserve or what we really want.
Mm.
And so in the book, I tell a story about how, over the years, I was a single parent for a very long time. And because of that, sometimes money was tight. And people would give me pieces of furniture, or, a painting for my house or something like that. And I graciously accepted, because at that time, I couldn't do any better. But I realized that when I looked around my house, it didn't reflect me. And it really took a toll on my self-esteem, because I didn't want people to come over to my house, because it's not that, it was clean and everything, but it just was not what reflected me.
It was a hodgepodge and stuff, right?
Right.
Yeah.
It was a hodgepodge. And I settled for that, what people gave me and what people thrust upon me. Sometimes people want to get rid of their junk, and so you want such and such, instead of calling Goodwill to come pick it up, they'll try to
They drop it off at your porch.
drop it at true. And we don't realize how our environment reflects how we feel about ourselves. And so when we settle, it chips away at our self-esteem. And so I adopted that mantra: why settle when you can select? We can select the life that we want. We can select the
Yes.
people in our lives that we want, not just the people that kind of mosey in and out of our lives. And we talk a lot about romantic relationships, but we have friends, girlfriends in our lives that we shouldn't have in our lives. We have girlfriends who can be toxic, and you realize you're in a toxic relationship with a friend. And so why settle when you can select basically means there is the best out there for you. Instead of settling for the easy route, go put your time and energy into what makes you happy. And it's not always the easiest route.
Right.
It's the route that will make you the happiest.
Yeah, selection is a process.
It is.
Right.
It
It's a
is.
process. And so it takes a lot longer for
Mhm.
you to go through the process, as opposed to settling for,
Right.
like I used to be really crazy about a certain kind of chip. And so then I would say, oh, chips are the same, right? But they're not.
They're not.
They're absolutely not. And so,
They're
and then you
not.
buy this bag of chips, you bring it home, and it ends up in the trash because it's not the chips that you want, right? It costs a little more money, but
Mhm.
it is just something that you have decided that you need and you selected. We
Right.
need a part two to this conversation. It's almost 9 o'clock already, but I want to ask you this one particular question. I did, and I'm done. I did, and I'm done. Reframing your future. Talk about that for just a few minutes.
many of us have been in relationships. They don't always have to be toxic, but they're not the relationship, the friendship for us, or they've run their course. Because honestly, some of our relationships start off very well, but as time progresses and people grow in different directions, they have run their course and they've run their purpose. And so when we say, I do, I did, I'm done. We know when a woman is done, she is done.
Fed up. Yes.
Done. You know, we don't necessarily come out of relationships hating someone,
Right.
even though sometimes we do,
Right.
but sometimes we're just done. In the process of building ourselves up after a breakup, any type of breakup, whether it's romantic or platonic, it truly is
Even death. Even death is a
even death, any kind. You have to go through the stages of grief, just like if someone died, if a relationship dies, or any type of loss, job loss, you know, anything that
Right.
we've lost
that alters your atmosphere.
that alters your atmosphere.
Right.
We have to go through the process of grief. And first and foremost, forgive ourselves, because we tend to beat up on ourselves. I shoulda, I woulda. I recently went through a situation where I separated myself from an organization, and I beat up on myself for several weeks saying, I should have seen this, I should have done that, I should have known, I should. And so we have to forgive ourselves for staying in too long, or not following our first mind, and even getting into the relationship initially. All of the things that bring us grief, we have to forgive ourselves for that. And then once we've forgiven ourselves, we need to decide what we want now.
Right. What's next?
What's next?
What's next? Right.
What's next? It's just like when you leave a job and you say, okay, what's next? What do I want to do next? And so really making the conscious effort and writing goals down of what you want next in your life. Now that you're done with that situation, you did, you did, now you're done.
Done.
What is next? What are you going into? What are you embracing for yourself? What have you really always wanted?
Right.
That you've put on the back burner
Right.
for other people, you know, or due to other people's opinions. And so once you realize that, it's time to write down those goals and pursue them with all your heart, because single is so amazing when you embrace the fact that you're free.
You're free to do whatever you want.
You can do whatever you want. You are unentangled. If you want to jump up and move to Hawaii, you can do it. And so that's what the process looks like. You have to grieve what was, forgive, and then make a plan for your new life.
Well, listen, it's 9 o'clock. It just went so fast. I really do.
I know.
I would love a part 2, maybe in June,
Okay.
after the sales of your book have climbed to amazing. And
yes.
there's so much more I want to talk about, but I want to, first of all, I want to talk about family trauma. We didn't get to that.
Oh my
I
goodness.
mean, we didn't get to a lot of things.
I think we need to wait for part 2 for that.
Right, it has to be part 2, right? And so I thank you so much. I so enjoyed Good in Bed. It was nothing what I expected. It gave me very good key points and ways to respond to people being single, and at a certain age you just never know what exactly to say. And I do love the fact I came here single, that's why I'm still single, right? Very key points that you gave. The singledom, a way to just respond to people who don't understand that being alone doesn't mean you're alone.
Not at all.
Not at all.
At all.
At all. So please give our audience a way to contact you and how to get copies of your book.
I am most active on Instagram, so please follow.
Oh, I'm gonna need to do that. It's just so much. Instagram. Okay, go ahead.
Instagram at Single and Amazing. I'm also at Single and Amazing on Facebook, or my personal page, Debbi Rice. And you can get a copy of my book at singleandamazing.com. That's singleandamazing.com. It is also on Amazon. So either way you'd like to get it is fine with me, singleandamazing.com or on Amazon.
And we ask all of our guests to give us a pearl of wisdom before they depart. And we'll ask that from you now.
Single is so much more than a relationship status. I say it all the time. It is a time where we gather back all the pieces of ourselves that we gave away to other people, that we gave away to the opinions of other people. And so my pearl of wisdom tonight is, don't wait. Don't wait for anything.
No.
Don't wait. Start living. When you're waiting, you're not experiencing.
No.
When you're waiting, you're not living. So don't wait, because you don't want to look up and your life is gone and you were waiting for anything. So my pearl of wisdom tonight is, go out, live your best, biggest, boldest life. Forget about the opinions of others and live.
Debbi Rice, it was amazing conversation, and you are the author of Good in Bed. I enjoyed it. I hope that others will enjoy it. Please go to Amazon.com and leave a review. That always pulls everybody's numbers up.
Yeah.
And thank you for being here and Zoom in on a fresh conversation after dark. Thank you all for being here. I certainly appreciate you pivoting to conversation on a Sunday night. And to our audience, single is no longer a lack of options. It's a choice.
Amen.
Single is no longer a lack of options. It's a choice. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Debbi. Thank you for being here on Zoom in on a fresh conversation. Good night.
Good night.